everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1550 AM. This is Soniya, your show host. I'm the founder and CEO of Orbis 86, a company onboarding people to the world of Web3 using arts, entertainment, and education powered by Gen AI. With me today in the studio, we have Asif. And Asif Qamar is the founder of Support Vectors, and he has a rich background in AI ML and teaching students for years on these subjects. But I do not want to steal the thunder from him, so let's quickly get to Asif and ask him about his background. Hello, Asif. Welcome to the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi.
Hello, Soniya. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to Radio Zindagi to be a guest speaker. Now, my background, I come from India. After doing my IIT, I came to US to pursue my doctoral studies. For a while, I worked, my undergraduate was in electronics and communications engineering. And after that, I was doing doctoral studies in theoretical particle physics. Then I followed it up with a master's in computer science. Then I've been working in the industry now for about 25 years. So much of the work that I have done in the last 30 years or so have dealt with scientific computing, numerical computations, machine learning, data mining, and artificial intelligence and mathematical fields. That's been my area of specialization in computer science. In the last few years, I was leading the AI division for a large software company in e-learning. Now, recently, I started Support Vectors, which is now full-time dedicated to the topic of artificial intelligence. We teach artificial intelligence. We build products in artificial intelligence. So here, all our life is centered around artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Asif. And folks, if you want to learn more about Asif, do go ahead and take a look at his website, Support Vectors. They do have courses that run periodically for anyone who is willing to take up a career in Web3 or anyone who already is established and just wants to learn more about AI MLs. Go ahead and take a look at Support Vectors. But without further ado, let's get into the topics for today. So as you guys know, this is episode 2 of season 2 of the Silicon Dreams. This season is dedicated to Web3 and AI ML, the next frontiers of technology as we know them. So with that, our first episode was dedicated to Web3, and this episode we're going to dedicate it to kicking off our AI talks. In this particular episode, we are going to talk about the evolution of AI and also try and figure out what next is coming up from this entire realm of artificial intelligence, where we're talking about superhuman intelligence, which could be much beyond our grasp too. So we are going to talk about those topics, but more importantly, we are also going to talk about how could we as humans be alert, be aware of the bad actors who might be leveraging this fantastic tool, unfortunately, for the wrong reasons. So we're going to talk about all of those topics, and then obviously, this is going to set the tone for the next few episodes of season 2 of the Silicon Dreams. So Asif, let me start by asking you this particular question, right? Why don't we have a little chat on the history of AI? Now, the word AI itself, especially in the startup economy, I feel has been abused a lot in the past decade, especially investors wanting to just throw their money at anything that said, hey, we have AI. And that AI was as simple as an if statement in some cases. But let's go back to the very beginning. Where did the word AI really find its origin at?
Soniya, the origin of the word artificial intelligence is a little hard to trace. You could say it started with Alan Turing, the person who created the so-called the modern computer. It goes even further back. If you look into history, Charles Babbage, when he was creating the analytical engine or trying to create it, and in those days he was trying to create it with gears, and didn't quite succeed, though his ideas were right. His aim was not to create yet another more powerful abacus or calculator. His goal was essentially to create something that could think, that could have intelligence. And so the concept or our pursuit of creating intelligent machines is very closely intertwined with our pursuit of creating computing itself, or computers themselves. It goes even further back. If you look at the various traditions, for example, if you look at, I am told that in the Hebrew tradition, there's a concept of a golem, which is something like a being that you can create, put life into it, and it can do superhuman things. While it can do superhuman things, it also comes with a lot of risks. It has a potential for creating mischief. And so I understand that even before we had anything like artificial intelligence, people were quite aware, and they were thinking deeply about what it would mean if we could create things that had superhuman capabilities or that had super intelligence, and what dangers it would pose to humanity, or what mischief it could do. Now, more recently, one would say that the pursuit of artificial intelligence became much more real as soon as computers came about. Alan Turing was very keen on doing that. A few years later, there was a whole program that was called the Logic Theorists. And the pursuit of that program was literally artificial intelligence. And it has had its ups and downs. People like Marvin Minsky would often get carried away and say, we will have artificial intelligence in 3 to 8 years. That's what he said in 1970s. That didn't quite happen. And as you peel sort of the onion, you find layers and layers of difficulty coming up. You needed computing power, which was simply not available in the 1970s to the extent that we now know is needed. We did not have data to train it. And frankly, we didn't even have those breakthroughs, the theoretical breakthroughs in algorithms. But over the years, those pieces have been coming together. They have been falling in place. With the Web 2, enormous amounts of data, social data has accumulated. With IoT, a lot of industrial data has accumulated. So we are swimming in data, huge data or big data. At the same time, Moore's law has made computing available, computing power available at an unprecedented rate. And the enormous amount of research that has gone into the foundations of artificial intelligence, machine learning. Now, all of it is coming together. And it almost seems that there has been a massive acceleration in the last few years. For example, 2014 could be considered a milestone year. That's when you had things like ResNet and GAN, and many of these key algorithms began to show up and or networks began to show up and did what was then considered pretty astonishing. In December of 2017 came the Attention is All You Need, a seminal paper that led to the idea or the architecture for transformers. Transformers became big, and now we call them large language models. And today, one of those large language models, the GPT-4, underpins many things. It underpins ChatGPT. It underpins GitHub's a code helper, right? And there are many such things coming about these, but you see them everywhere now. All of a sudden, it seems that AI has come into its own and it's making rapid progress.
Thanks. I would love to actually touch upon the various milestones. You did a great job of summarizing the journey of AI so far, but I would love to talk about a few of the milestones as well. So you started by talking about Alan Turing, and I think even to date, an unofficial benchmark is the Turing test.
Yes.
Why is the Turing test that important? Like maybe, you could start by first telling our listeners what is the Turing test. So this is again, guys, listening to the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi with me, Soniya. We have Asif in the studio. Asif is the founder of Support Vectors, an institute training people for the past many years on AI and ML. So Asif, the question that we are discussing right now is, Alan Turing, what was it that he is famously known for? And a lot of people in the Bay Area, I'm pretty sure most of the listeners here know who Alan Turing is. But for the benefit of doubt of those who do not, let's start by talking about who was this famous British mathematician, scientist, whatever we want to call him, and why is the Turing test an important benchmark and an official benchmark that is widely discussed today, and what does it mean for artificial intelligence?
All right, first I'll start with Alan Turing, who for many of us, certainly for me, is one of the great idols and great inspirations for our careers. He was a British mathematician who is credited with running the program that broke the Enigma code, and eventually it is credited with saving the lives of countless people. I don't know what they estimated. It is in millions. It is in hundreds of thousands, but it's a vast number of people. There was a movie on his life, The Imitation Game.
Exactly. I was just about to talk about it. Like, if you don't, if this doesn't ring a bell, then the famous movie, The Imitation Game, you guys need to all go and check it out. I think it's a fairly good portrayal about the mathematician and his life and what he did for the Enigma code, for breaking the machine he created for breaking the Enigma code.
Yes, indeed. And in fact, the Turing test was was initially called the Imitation Game. It's something we don't realize. Now, what the imitation game is, or what the Turing test is, that let us say that there is an interrogator. Let's call the interrogator A. And the interrogator has to tell apart between two things, a human being giving responses and a machine giving responses. Now, if the interrogator is not able to tell which is the human and which is the machine, we say that the machine has passed the Turing test. In other words, it has imitated human intelligence. Right? That is the Turing test. Where are we today? We seem to be, it depends upon, I mean, the Turing test is pretty broad in general. And you can argue that the machines are passing the Turing test for specialized tasks, or not passing it in the more general task. Like, they don't exhibit general intelligence, but they do exhibit a specialized intelligence. It is a remarkable fact that these voice things like Alexa, Siri, and so on and so forth, regularly they get marriage proposals from people on a daily basis almost, is because there are people who can't believe that these things are not human. They ascribe to it empathy, they ascribe to it intelligence, they ascribe to it wisdom and capacity for love and many things. And for them, it is beyond belief that it is not actually some human being behind the machine who's talking to them but pretending to be the machine, that it is actually the machine responding to it. So that should give us a perspective on how far these things have come. When you talk to ChatGPT, you ask it to write essays, it does an incredibly good job of it. We are using it today for education. It is arguably, Khan Academy is using it as a personalized tutor. It's revolutionizing education. It's revolutionizing fields. Yes.
And that's a great example that you brought up. In fact, if we all famously remember a couple of years ago, even before everybody was really dabbling and talking about ChatGPT, Google had demonstrated on stage their AI making a call to book an appointment, and the person on the other end of the phone really thought that it was a person calling in. They had, in fact, made sure that the speech was accentuated, and also there were natural pauses and fillers that were added in. It was surprising to see the AI use fillers like oh, and really make the conversation sound really natural. And I believe at this point we have had quite a few machines, as you said, pass the Turing test. Do you think we are at a junction now where the machines will transcend beyond just passing the Turing test and becoming more intellectually larger than human beings themselves?
The zeitgeist is permeated with a sense of almost irrational exuberance towards this AI at this moment. People are astonished, they are amused, they are scared. Like people seem to feel that these machines are super intelligent. In specialized tasks they are, for the things they are trained. You have to remember that these machines, at the end of it, these large language models, these transformers, they are backed with some reinforcement learning, reward and punishment learning with human feedback. When they give answers that to human beings look right, they're given a reward. When they give answers that to human beings don't look right, well, they have to take corrective measures and learn again. So at the end of it, in a way, they have been trained to also make human beings feel that they are intelligent, and they do the specialized tasks very well. I do not, however, feel that we have even started in the direction of creating something that's capable of generalized intelligence. For example, the Chat GPT, which has caught popular imagination and is most impressive, not just Chat GPT, nowadays, in the last 3-4 weeks, the open source community and the research community has done incredible work. Every day there is a paper. I was just looking into Lamini, and every single day you wake up and there's a breakthrough. When you look at all of these, one shouldn't forget that today, these large language models, at root, they do one thing. They predict the next word. Right? Given a prompt, they predict the first word, keeping the context in mind, they predict the second word and the third word. The most astonishing thing is that by doing just that, which is sort of a process of local optimization, they nonetheless are able to produce such coherent and such meaningful outputs. It speaks both to its strengths as well as, I believe, currently its limitations. If we do not yet know how to move towards generalized intelligence, artificial generalized intelligence. In fact, we do not know specifically what is the next step we should take to not, or what is the new way of looking at it that would take us beyond just making the next word prediction. We also know that this is not how biological systems think. Geoffrey Hinton has made was quite foundational in incorporating something called backpropagation, which is needed for these neural networks to learn. He has often pointed out that biological systems don't use backpropagation. To the best of our knowledge, signal transduction is in one direction only. And recently he proposed an algorithm called forward-forward algorithm, which sort of eschews or is an alternative to backpropagation. There are activities like that. Today, I would say that we are reaching the peak of what we can do with the existing technologies. And I believe the OpenAI CEO, Sam, also somewhere made this point that while all of this is very impressive, we might be plateauing off because we have reached the limits of how far we can take these systems. That may or may not be true. Maybe we can take it much further. Those are applications, but what we need are fundamental breakthroughs, which we hope comes.
So the OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman, right, recently he came out in the press and said that, hey, there is a chance. In fact, I don't know if he said there's a chance, but he was like, oh, we are not planning for a GPT-5. We already have a lot with GPT-4, and GPT-4 is where it's going to stay at for a moment. So we're talking about possibly that saturation. With transformers, generative AI has taken on a completely new form. We were talking about predicting the next word, but we also have transformers, generative AI that are being used, and OpenAI has Dolly, which is for image generation. We also have Stable Diffusion, Mid-Journey, and given a prompt, these models, they spit out an image, and some of those images are pretty good. And then we also have OpenAI has Jukebox, and then we have some other companies like Sounddraw, etc., that also have AI-built music. In fact, more recently, we had a big debacle on YouTube and Spotify, where there was a song that sort of imitated the voice of Drake. I think it was Drake. And then they already had like a couple of million views and whatnot in just a day or 2 days. Eventually, the song was taken off Spotify, taken off YouTube. The person who created it did mention that this was an AI generated version, but that did give rise to the question, are people really just rooting for Drake, or they would go with any voice that really just sinks to them, right? And this voice was something that sounded like Drake. The lyrics, the music, everything was AI generated. And imitation with AI is a huge issue too, because even with the images that we have been looking at, a lot of the times you actually find artists' signatures in those images, and that makes you wonder whether right now these AI models for generating images are just stealing information from the internet and putting it together, or are they truly generating anything? How would you say these models, especially when we're talking about music being created with Jukebox from OpenAI or images being created with Dolly from OpenAI, how would you say these are different from the large language models that we're talking about, which, as you said, at its root, they are just predicting the next word?
So this is a very good question, and it touches on quite a few issues. So I'll address them one by one. So it is definitely true. You can use the transformer architecture, and it has been used with tremendous success to produce songs, to produce very evocative paintings, drawings, images, and now recently to even generate entire videos. And that brings up, especially the whole field of generative AI, brings up very interesting things. One thing is, are they imitating? No, they can't. We do know that these transformers, they don't memorize. For them to regurgitate, they need to remember. They don't remember things exactly. They don't have that memory capacity to remember all of the world's things. But what they do is their weights and biases, essentially, to the extent that we understand, and we don't quite understand how these things fully work. We know the architecture, we know backprop, we know enough, but there are aspects that we yet have to understand. To the best of our knowledge, they somehow assimilate all that they have learned into representations, into an understanding. From that understanding, obviously now they can, at some level, they can produce new art, interpolate and create new things. Now, when they do create, it is not literally copying, because copying would imply they remember what they're copying. They don't. But they have understood a lot. They contain the collective intelligence. The collective knowledge has gone into them, and they have sort of distilled it in some understanding, some representation internally. It does bring up, however, while they are not imitating, it does bring up some very interesting questions in jurisprudence. For example, these machines have been taught with our art, our creativity, our songs, our music. When they have been done, who owns the output of these machines? What is the legal meaning of ownership? Like, for example,
Copyright, especially.
More than copyright, even the question of what is property, it goes to the foundation of jurisprudence at this particular moment. And what is property right? Right. Mm-hmm. And should it be, who should get, if the company that trains that transformer makes $1 in licensing, who are all the people who should get royalties from it? And the artists are asking that question very legitimately. There are also questions like, and these questions came, for example, when people were using Adobe software to create graphic art. People had to make a distinction between photography, as in what you see through the camera, and what was highly manipulated. Right. And so a highly manipulated picture would be called graphic art, not photography, and wouldn't win a photography prize per se. But there were certain boundaries to some level of cleaning, filtering, etc. was allowed. Likewise with this, we have art competitions. Who should win the art competition? Should we let these transformers win the art competitions? Then we are all done for, because they have the collective experience of all of humanity, and it's very hard for any one artist to compete with that. So we will have to revisit not just questions of copyrights but even more fundamental ownerships. How does
That's right.
How does rumination go?
There's been a huge movement from the artists, obviously, because if you go to ChatGPT today, right, or rather DALL-E, you can actually ask for art to be created in the style of a particular artist. And the question begs that creativity, if this art is inspired by the style of a certain artist, is that plagiarism? Who should get credits? And we have more episodes of the Silicon Dreams when we're going to talk about all of these. For today, I hope the audience members, everybody listening into the Silicon Dreams and Radio Zindagi, did get an interesting view into the journey of AI, and generative AI is a hot subject right now. So we would be covering more about this in our future episodes. But if time has just gone by so swiftly, we are already at the end of our 25-minute segment. So what I would love to do is take leave from Asif right now. However, we will come back for another episode and we'll have Asif as we continue into these conversations, because there are still so many unanswered questions left. Especially, I want to know what is going to be the next stage for AI in general, right? Like at the moment, if AI is creating art inspired by something else, when will we see AI coming up with true creativity, or are we already there? Can AI create something that's completely novel all by itself, just like human beings can? Also, will the jobs become redundant? What should human beings be prepared for? Given the light that AI and ML have already started taking over jobs, like literally jobs from programming to content writing, all across the spectrum, anything that you're doing digitally at the moment. And also, we did not get to touch upon the horrors of AI that we should all be prepared for if AI as a tool just falls into the hands of the bad actors. But there are just so many questions to be answered and so much information to be unearthed that one episode is never, it could have just not done us the justice. So what I would like to do is just bid farewell to Asif just for this particular segment, and then invite him over for another segment of the Silicon Dreams when we can discuss all of this. So Asif, before we wrap up this particular segment, is there any call to action you would love to leave the listeners of the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi with?
I suppose I would say AI is going to be dominant in our lives going forward. With it comes great opportunity, but great perils. So as citizens, it becomes a responsibility to develop basic literacy about AI. Otherwise, we may see only the positive or the negative, and we may not be able to make balanced judgment. So we should all, as far as possible, educate ourselves.
Thank you, Asif. That was actually a great note to wrap up this particular episode 2 of the Silicon Dreams Season 2 with. Guys, if you are looking at creating that basic literacy, the Silicon Dreams, these next few episodes, they are going to be for you. But besides that, go and even have a chat with ChatGPT, learn about the basics. And if you want to go a little beyond the basics and you want to try and explore how you could make a career in AI ML, then there are many organizations offering you support. And Support Vectors is one such organization. Asif, again, is the founder of Support Vectors here. And Asif, thank you so much for this amazing chat on the history and evolution of AI. And I know time just ran out so quickly, but I appreciate all the knowledge that you brought to the table today. So folks, you are listening to the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1550 AM. This is me, Soniya, with Asif from Support Vectors on the show. And at this point, we would love to bid you farewell. Have an amazing week ahead. And we will be back with more Web3 and AI bites in our next shows. So don't forget to tune in on Mondays at 3:30 p.m. on 1550 AM. Until then, stay safe and stay aware.